a person from El Salvador named Kilmar Ábrego García. He had a withholding of removal, and he was removed and sent back to El Salvador. The administration has came out since and said this was an administrative mistake. The Trump administration is saying, well, we can't compel the El Salvadorian government to do things. Do we prioritize national security or due process?
There needs to be some sort of due process of law, or at least some sort of well thought through reason for deporting someone and handing them over to be prosecuted by another government if that government is not very trustworthy, if that makes sense, to do a fair thing with that person. Is El Salvador, are they doing the right thing, or are they putting these people in prison just because they think that that's what they're expected to do? There needs to be some sort of process there of thinking through what are we actually doing to these people when they haven't technically been convicted of the crime here in a court, but there is evidence that they're potentially terrorists or potentially part of this gang.
I completely disagree with most of the premise that you presented, Troy. If somebody comes into the country illegally, unless there is a court that comes up and has a specific reason, like this guy's Garcia case, that presents evidence of why he should not be allowed to be deported out, I think in almost all cases, there's no need for due process. You come in here illegally, you get sent back to your country. What your country does with you, that's up to them. We are not the world police of every other country. We cannot make sure that El Salvador and every other country in the world is doing what they're supposed to do as far as human rights, stuff like that.
I would like to say, as somebody who voted for Trump and supports much better illegal immigration and border security, I'm happy with what Trump has done so far. I will say that. And I was never on board with the idea of rounding up every illegal immigrant in the United States and deporting all of them, because I knew what that picture looked like, just imagining it in my mind, what Reese described it earlier. And I was never for that. And even when Trump said those things, I wasn't expecting him to do that. I was expecting him to do a much lower version of that, right? And what I've seen happen so far, I'm super happy with. One thing that I saw this week at whitehouse.gov, they released an article just a couple days ago, no safe harbor for illegal immigrant criminals under President Trump. And obviously, you're right, Reese, they're trying to push that narrative of self-deport and illegal immigrants staying out of the country, dissuading them before they even try to come. In this article, they have a list of cold-blooded criminals deported to El Salvador, and they have the list and they have the crimes they've been convicted of. And in my mind, I'm super happy that they're not just deporting, but also handing over to have these people in prison, these people that have been convicted of these atrocious crimes, and it's those are the people that I want to be deported more than anybody else. And those are the people that I want to be in prison more than anybody else, so that our streets are safer, so that our people are safer. I'm so glad that the Trump administration is actually doing something about this when the Biden administration did not. And for me personally, Trump bringing one guy back that they accidentally sent, it would not affect me at all and the way I view the things that they've gotten done so far.
This would explain why Trump's saying, it's not our country, nothing we can do, nothing we can do. That would explain it, because you can't, because there's something he can do. In most countries, it's a big deal. It is a deportable offense. The only issue is that there is a due process. But the problem is, in America, this just exposes the ridiculousness of the due process.
The issue is that, and you can call it an issue or just the procedure, is its constitutional rights. The 5th and the 14th Amendment protect the rights for also non-citizens. Judges throughout history interpret the Constitution a particular way. When you have a Supreme Court who is making a judgment that's it was 9-0 to not bring this guy back.
There was no dissenting opinions either.
This is just judges interpreting how due process should work. And due process hasn't been working very well over the years.
What we need for what you're saying is a real quick point is we would need Congress to step in and make some very specific clarifications.
I've heard stories of people who went to the U.S. intentionally and they just overstayed their visa, and that's just the way they live because it's just not a big deal, and they have a whole family there. And then if they end up having some issue, they get deported, and it's going to be 15 years before they come back to see their family, and their family can't go see them so it's very risky to be in the United States illegally.
I just feel like it's one of those issues where it's you keep making the wrong decision and it keeps compiling upon itself like tax evasion. It's
right.
Wait, you haven't paid taxes this year? And it's well, I haven't paid taxes in 20 years, so of course I'm not going to start now, or else I'm going to get caught for the last 20 years.
You're going to get caught.
That's the problem. It keeps getting worse and worse and worse, and then at some point, you're going to get caught.
Who do you believe in this situation? We need some actual cold hard facts, and we're just not getting that. I blame the media, because they're muddying up this issue hard.
They're not trying to report the facts. They're trying to argue a side. And
exactly.
They're painting it. We read some headlines today where it's just a blatant lie. If you're enjoying this episode, you can get access to the full-length exclusive conversation by becoming a member on youtube.com or locals.com. The links will be below. Also, don't forget to subscribe and come back.